Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, I have moved to East Hampton, Massachusetts. I'm sitting here with Kathy and Tim. I cannot tell you how lovely the valley is. I even went into the RMV and they were sweet. Everybody, the Honda place, everywhere I go, everybody is loving. It must be the valley, the Pioneer Valley. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm excited to share with you again my buddy Joel Goldsmith. With the move, I have found that focusing is something I'm entitled to, and without a doubt, the mystic Joel has changed my life. As someone who had Christian Science influence, grandparents way back in the 1800s, a dad, all the ins and outs of that, seeing my dad struggle in particular with illness and how that reading the key to the scripture every day really, with endurance and patience and drive and courage, he managed to create quite a life for himself. And I reflect that, and I was comforted by the book by Lorraine Sinkler called The Spiritual Journey of Joel Goldsmith. I want to tell you about that. Joel also had his problems with illness. I don't know, the comfort in someone having an illness, having gone through trauma in life, to be open to a mystical life, to me, all of us can be comforted by that, because there's no one out here who has not been awake through some mode of stress, turmoil, loss, abandonment, that awful sinking, suffering feeling within. This man, though, started out in the business world. His dad was a retailer, flew all over the world, finally trained his son, who had to leave 8th grade to help him out because of the Depression. I mean, he was born in 1892, went through so much about the planet and all its problems and suffering and economic problems. So he became very good at that. He also was an ideal salesman because he didn't sell. He had products that he believed in, and so he would go to a client and say, hey, you know, if you're not interested in that is fine, but let me show it to you, you might like it. And he always had such great products that they bought them. So he didn't manipulate his clients. He didn't come at it with like a car salesman, boy, have I got something for you. He was very, he carried that throughout his whole life. He really cared about people and working with them. So my friends, what opened up his healing mode was his dad, who was in Europe, got really, really ill, to the point where his mother, whom he was very attached to, got the notice, please come get your husband. He's dying. We just want you to know that. Get ready for that. And so Joel really was just overwhelmed with that story, and he went, by no accident, of course, the way life happens to us, to a Christian Science practitioner. He didn't know she was a Christian Science practitioner, but he happened to tell her, gosh, my dad is gone. She said, oh, he died? No, he's just really ill, and they told us he's dying. Well, she said, no, he isn't. He said, what do you mean? So immediately she said, look, this is what I do. I'm a healer. Let me work on this. And of course, the end of the wonderful story is his father not only recovered, but came home, and that did it for Joel. That was it. He was hooked. Now that's after 36 years of his past in Brooklyn and being a merchant. He decided he better get studying. And his mother always said to him, I know, Joel, you want to find God. That's all there is to it. I know you're going to do it. He would go to her and say, I think you're right, but I don't know how to do that. Haven't found him yet. And she said, well, when you do, let me know. So they had this really, really close relationship, and like mother, son, it's kind of sweet. But anyway, so from that point on, he started to study, he started to read anything from the Orient, any kind of metaphysical studies. He certainly studied Mary Baker Eddy, who was such an incredible founder of Christian Science. What a woman, what a movement that opened up, frankly, unity, religious science, any kind of metaphysical teaching where we're all whole, complete, and perfect, the world is an illusion, all of that stuff. So he studied, and he studied, and he studied. And then for 16 years after studying, he became a practitioner, and he became famous as a healer. Now, this is not to say that he didn't struggle like you would not believe with some healings that either didn't work or money not coming in. During those days, to make a living was unbelievably difficult. I love the story that Lorraine Sinkler has written about him because it's so firsthand. All his letters are in this book about what he went through, his frustration. He was terribly driven, and he was hard on people. He always said, if I marry again, God love her, you know, who could put up with me? He was ardent working with his students. He had all these small groups that met all over the world. You name the country, he was invited there. He loved to travel. He wrote just volumes of material. He did plenty of tapes. The tapes kept breaking, but somehow or other, all of these angels kept coming in and putting his life together on tape, which today are on CDs, and there are study groups all over the country, all over the world. This man broke through really metaphysics. He went right to the core of what Buddha did. After Buddha discovered, because his father tried to protect him, that there were ill people and there was turmoil and sadness in the world, he was shocked. He had to find out. He became a seeker. He tried everything, and finally, in exhaustion, like Jesus, like Joel, like all the mystics, sat down under that tree, the Bodhi tree, Buddha, and woke up to the illusion of this planet, to this whole plane, this whole human existence. They all found out doesn't exist. That's a heavy thing to deal with, but what a fun thing to think about. The reason I love this material is I love a challenge. I've finished marathons, I've toe danced in New York, I've done a lot of stuff that says you can do it. And so now I want to live like Joel, I want to live like a mystic, and so I study, I read, and of course meditate. He's key on that need to pull ourselves together because we need to listen. We need to listen hard. So he also says when you're listening, if you hear all this prattle in your head from your brain, don't worry about it. He said your human mind, if you argue with it, it's going to get worse. Just accept it, laugh at it, listen to it. Whatever you do, just let it go. And before long, there'll be a sense of quiet, and there'll be that still small voice. It can be a hunch. I love the fact that Joel had the courage to say it's a feeling, because boy, I know that feeling of the presence. There's nothing like it. It can hit you walking down a street where something just overcomes you and you just know that you are in the Garden of Eden. You have everything. You know, in that Garden of Eden story, somebody got the crazy idea that let's think about being separate from God, and thought about pleasures and lust and all the stuff that the human plane gives us to be lures away from our wholeness and our completeness within ourselves, needing nothing but the voice for God. So with that in mind, I get so excited at the thought that you can wake up each day, honor where everybody is, Christians, Jews, wherever anybody is perfect. Mystics, mediums, everybody is doing what they should be doing because that's what's happening to them. And that's another thing about illumination. I don't want to forget to say it will happen to you. It will happen to you because you have grace within you. You have that voice within you, which, by the way, 24/7 is hammering at you. Not hammering, it's beautifully just there. You have to reconcile. You have to get into that. You have to allow it. You have to realize it. You have to feel it. Now, the good news and the bad news may be that you have to do it. It's all there. Everything's in place. It's your job. And when you're ready, believe me, you will. If you stumble through trauma, if you stumble through disease, if you go through periods in your life like a painter that make no sense, where you're just hanging on for dear life and surviving, good for you. Good for you. The more turmoil, the more you're open and you're ready, and the more you're going to be used for a special mission. I had no idea mine would be this. My dad, who struggled so, who's no longer with us, I know he knows I'm doing this. I'm the one Chatterton out of 4 that took that baton from the Chatterton side of the family, and I'm honored to do what I can. So here we have a man who in the spiritual journey was so humble, and so real. And I think that's a vote for being honest with ourselves and others. And I say that because God knows the truth of you, so there's no point in fooling around. You know, you'll get a check somewhere that won't be comfortable. But you know, to love someone who's real and honest and open and full of mistakes and excitement and highs and lows, to have someone just so real, and that's what Joel gives me with all the turmoil, all my early loss, all my illness, all my ups and downs, because I've gotten to this nice plateau where things are really in an interesting state, which even I don't understand it, but things have leveled off to a sweetness and an ease and an understanding. It took practice. I started my journey as a teenager. As a teenager, I had that beautiful forgiveness experience where I did go into that vortex where I wasn't here, and a lot of folks have done that. I didn't understand then what a gift I had. All I know was I knew what it was like the real world was. And I cried when I came back. I just bawled and bawled and bawled, like Joel, who had that experience, because I was disappointed that I could no longer be there. So now I'm scrambling my way back and understanding that I can really help myself by sharing it. As I give it out, which is the point of what grace gives you, you really have to pour out the truth of life to have it. That's key, friends. You can't go around thinking someone's going to hit you over the head and say, okay, I'm going to give you enlightenment, I'm going to illumine you. Because you are already, your job has to be to understand that you do the job. You open up. You give away that gorgeous perfection within you. You give your love away. It's so easy, it gets by us. It's too simple. This plane, which is a fear-based plane, if you wake up, beware the television. I was noticing, gosh, there's every disease under the sun that you could have. There's all kinds of pressure to buy stuff, and if you don't have this, this can happen. I mean, it's really a lot to deal with. We're mesmerized. Joel used the words hypnotized and mesmerized. And we're not to take that lightly. It's huge what we have going on within us that we have absorbed. We were born into it. It continues. The fight is not an easy one. Being on the path is not an easy one, but you will be on it, as I say, sooner or later. Nice to know grace is there calling to you at all times. You just have to plug in. So my friends, Joel Goldsmith is a mystic. He died in his early 70s, I think almost when I picked the material up. He had one lung. He had his struggles. He also had an incredible practice. Now, here's such an important piece about Joel. He did not want anything organized. The minute you organize it, you're separate from God. You get a minister, you get somebody else, somebody squabbling. If you don't organize it, everybody's entitled, no matter where you are, in a church, in a synagogue, out on Main Street. You can be a mystic and be happy and full everywhere. And you're not separate from anybody. You're not saying, I'm a this. I belong to this organization. I am an Infinite Way student. You can be that, but you can also, that allows you to be anywhere and with anyone in a very loving capacity. And secrecy. Let me get to secrecy. These are key words. Secrecy. Don't tell everybody anything or everything, because you could sound a little far out. Now, the planet's the one that's far out, but nonetheless, because you're fighting the mesmerism and hypnotism of a whole world, you're the one that's going to possibly be looked at strangely. So I highly recommend you be careful. You'll know when you have a like mind where you can share. You'll just know it. It'll be given to you. There'll be something happening between you, sometimes in silence, where all that you are is loved and accepted and honored. One of Joel's big principles, and I thank Chris Bentley, who has an underlay in my graphics, iwstudents.webs.com. The first principle is omnipotence. There is only one power, so if you think you see another one, you're not. If it's not God, if it's not love, it's not there. And the next one is omnipresence. There is no other presence. If you think you see a mirage like in a desert, it's a mirage. It's not real. There's only one presence. That presence of God is all about love and life and spirit, which is tingling with life. Then there's only omniscience. If you think the wisest man in the world can teach you something, wrong. The only one that can teach you anything is within you. You have round the clock wisdom that nothing can touch. There's nobody that can give you what that voice can give you. I know, I've been to all of these places trying to be fed with, who am I? What am I to do? And I didn't realize I had the best within me. So we nothingize, in a way, this planet. We say to ourselves, and it takes work, it takes years to understand, really, if I'm saying it's not real, Joel is, mystics say Buddha, Jesus. It's something that, as you notice, there are not a million of those guys out there. It's worth working for. We're evolving and changing and growing. I mean, think about the horse and buggy that now we've got planes and trains. I mean, we spiritually, we were in a very physical world. We went through this mental world where, oh, let's manifest something by concentrating on it with our minds. All right, we went through a big phase of that. Well, we're beyond that now, because we're beyond what your mind's going to dream up. You're going to be open to receiving daily guidance. And the most exciting thing to remember is everything is within you. Perfect health, perfect wealth, perfect relationships, perfect fun, joy. That yellow brick road, you can walk it, but you have to say, I want to. And if you don't want to, then it won't happen, but it'll happen when you're ready to have that happen. So don't feel, if you're not doing it, that you're bad. Oh, good and bad. Joel says, there is no good, there's no bad. I love that, because if you think something's wonderful and that's not real either, it's not as real as what's bad. There's only love, there's only God. There are no two powers. Big on that. There are no two powers, there's no good, there's no evil. Bingo. Can you get any simpler than that, my friends? I don't think so. So the joy in me doing this and moving and being here with Kathy and Tim and in East Hampton and this loving Pioneer Valley is helping me to refocus and get stronger about what I am doing with Joel. And I would like to show up every month, and I'd like to produce shows, and I would like to talk about Joel and all of his books. There are hundreds of tapes, 30 or 40 books. You can go to any library and find him. You can Google him. These websites that are on the lower thirds, you can look them up. You can order your own tapes and books. I can't say enough for what it can give you, from where you've come from. If anything that I am saying, that Joel is saying, clicks with you, which is one of his favorite words, when he sits in meditation, he waits for the click, he feels a breath, and then he knows God is on the field. And from there, he moves on. And that's how he does his healings. You could be in Europe. If you're open to the fact that you've called on him and you are ready to be receiving long distance healing, he had to find out the hard way by scooting everywhere, hundreds of miles a day. He worked through that, realizing, look, I can realize the presence here for that person in Europe right now. And he did that. Distance healing is the same as being right in your face. You see, practitioners had to work on this to be healers. Anyone who wants to be a healer doesn't have to be a Christian Scientist, doesn't have to be an Infinite Ways student. You have to just realize who you are. If you get there through any other means, doesn't matter. But gratitude for your gifts and where you've come with a journey that hopefully has been ups and downs and rocky. You can't be a human being without the nonsense that goes on here. It's considerable. It's painful, it's joyous, it's fun, it's ridiculous. I love slapstick in particular, so I happen to see that a lot in life, and always love it when I run into somebody who can enjoy what we see together and find the humor in it, because there's humor. God is funny. Yes, even that book I was studying, Leave Your Nets, I want to talk to you about that next month. But right now, I can only say, if you're interested in Joel, He's a unique, vulnerable, real person who makes the life of Jesus make more sense. He knew that the Christ mind was his mind. He knew the second coming had already come. He had it. That's what Jesus tried to do. Everyone's waiting for the Messiah to come, blah, blah, blah. He left us with it. And he said, just listen, you've got it. You've got me, and my Father are one. You've got just what I've got. Jesus was a man. Joel's a man. Buddha was a man. I'm a woman. Whatever it is, whatever you are, these days it can be a lot of everything. You are very available for God to work with. I am very clear on that. Be open. Enjoy starting your day on the right foot. Don't go scrambling out with wet hair. Take a minute. Feel the presence. Feel what Joel calls a click. Feel something. Feel something that's beautiful within you. And then when God is on the field, you know it. And the crooked ways are made straight. Mansions are prepared for you all day long. You just can't get over the synchronicity of how life clicks along, how things come to you, and the magic of it all. You get the head slaps like Gibbs, and you just have to chuckle quietly. Again, sometimes I open my mouth too much with folks I shouldn't. I'll never learn. With a name like Chatterton, I'm still working on it, but it's wise to be in secret. I think Jesus shared with his disciples, and they say very few even got that. What does Jesus say? Straight is the gate and narrow is the way, and few there are that find it. There's got to be a comfort in that. This is not the easiest way to go in life. It's not the easiest path, but it's a path that will happen to you, and it's gradually happening to you now as you transition from one stage to another in your development. I was saying to Kathy earlier, in life when you find a little detachment about something you think should bring you joy, about being a kid again, and you feel nothing, it's because you're done. And that is the way I think Joel was very open about that. I love the fact that he gave me the gift of when he was ready to go. He was young, but he had done his work. He just knew. He was feeling a detachment about what he was to do next. And it was interesting, too, he shared something so sensitive when he was about to be on some podiums, and he absolutely had nothing. He had nothing. He didn't know. He just said, please cancel it for me. And then the voice always said, what to do, open this, do that. Every chance he got, he would get up there and the voice just started to go. And it worked with him every time in a place that he didn't even know where that was going to be. So my friends, I am winding down now in gratitude for my move, for my family, for my new friends, and for my new life of really focusing on Joel Goldsmith. I cannot say enough for the reward of studying, working, and please meditate if you really feel interested in receiving, because you will receive. You will receive. And I want to thank you, my friends, for joining me on Awaken the Dream. I will talk to you again soon.